Well, basically, I'm a finance person, and I always felt that if you want to be a good manager, you should be able to do any role that's assigned to you. So I was CFO from 1994 till 2006. As CFO, I also ran a part of the business. I handled many other areas. I handled infrastructure. For example, I built 45 million square feet of campus space for Infosys. I had facilities and other areas or administration reporting to me. And I wanted to step down as CFO in 2006 because I felt that other people in my team who had done well should play the role, and one should not occupy a position for too long. You must always make sure your colleagues get their day in the sun. And then my chairman told me, why didn't you handle HR? And so I handled HR, the Finacle business unit, and the chairman, the BPO company. So approximately about maybe 20% of revenues reported to me. It was interesting because as a senior member of a company, you are expected to work across areas, and you're expected to do many more things than do only your prime function. As a senior member, you're a spokesperson for the company. You are a brand ambassador for the company. You are a leader for the organization. And you are a person who participates in strategy setting for the entire organization. So it came very naturally that as you grow up in the organization and you occupied a high position, you will play multiple roles across the organization. So it was nothing out of the way. It was just the way I was built, just the way I want to do things, and just the way it worked out. Well, what is required now in the knowledge economy is deep expertise in particular topics. India has excelled at having a broad span of expertise in many areas of science and technology across the education spectrum. But we need deep expertise in certain areas to go forward, areas like artificial intelligence, areas like biotechnology, and areas like space technology, 3D printing, etc. Because in all these areas, there's been a tremendous amount of improvement, and this deep expertise is coming back to industry and coming back to society in the form of many more innovations that happen. Now, value is in creating this deep kind of expertise. If you don't have this, then others will dominate, and you will be doing the second level of expertise, that is good engineering. For example, in technology, India is a leader in software engineering. But India is not a leader in areas of deep learning or in artificial intelligence, in areas of 3D printing, etc., because we don't have enough PhDs, enough research in our institutions. So that's why I made the statement that the future belongs to people who develop deep areas of expertise and who have something very special compared to somebody else. Now, it's true that everybody cannot do that, but if we have sufficient numbers, we will do well. Also, in an era where artificial intelligence and automation will play an important role in business enterprises and in society, if you want to keep yourself ahead of the curve, you need to have something special that can't be automated because it's a routine task. And that means you have to have a deep expertise in a particular area, and that's what I meant by making the statement. Well, I think innovation is a culture based on free spirit, culture based on open inquiry, a culture based on curiosity. All human beings are curious. All human beings want to talk about new things. All human beings want to know many more things. There's an innate curiosity in a human being that is there from the time you're born. That's why you see a child looking with curiosity at many natural phenomena and asking questions which you don't expect adults to do. Now, in this scenario, as we get more educated, the curious spirit gets suppressed. It gets suppressed because in the education system, we follow the industrial era education system, which is based upon a single broadcast to many, one to many, where the many are supposed to listen, assimilate, understand, and write an examination to get a piece of paper. Now, that kind of system has played its role in creating a huge number of students who have certain minimum standards, but it has killed the curiosity in a large number of them. And that was necessary at a time because knowledge was not freely available. Knowledge is available to certain people who read certain books and who had spent time on study, and they were tasked with giving out the knowledge to many people. But today, with the internet and with search engines, you can get all the knowledge that you want on any topic and get your questions answered by experts all across the globe. So in this scenario, availability of the knowledge itself in your hard disk, in your mind, is not necessarily the competitive advantage that's going to take you forward. But what is going to take you forward is the ability that you should develop to understand the problem that you're trying to solve, understand how to get the data and the answers for that, and use all that to come up with an answer. That means you must have a curious bent of mind, and you must have, let us say, an ability to analyze data, an ability to reduce the choices that can happen in the data, and come out with solutions which can solve the problem. And that ability depends upon curiosity, depends upon innovation, and depends upon an open system which encourages you to question, encourages the spirit of inquiry in the individual. So for innovation to flourish, this spirit of inquiry, this energy and passion for learning, this energy and passion for becoming problem solvers is essential. And for startups, keeping this in the team is very, very important. And that's why for a startup, when you have a problem statement, everybody must come together and think out of the box, come out with solutions, write out many things, discuss, debate. Everybody should have a view and then distill whatever is come and test it out and come with a solution. So you have to create this culture of openness, of transparency, of questioning, of curiosity. If you don't do that, then nobody will respond and there'll be no innovation, because innovation is breaking the mold of what exists, breaking the status quo, coming out with new things, coming out with products that don't exist. And for that, you must have a spirit of inquiry and a curious mind, and that culture is what will foster innovation. But when you become bigger, you put in processes because you want to grow, and those you become victims of those processes. You become subject matter of the tyranny of the process, and when the process dominates because you want to execute very well, you want repeatability, you want sustainability, you want certainty of the output, then you all become victims of processes, and the tyranny of the process will dominate and curiosity will be, let us say, suppressed. So in this scenario, innovation cannot flourish. That's why most innovation happens in smaller organizations who are not yet suffered the tyranny of the process and the rigidity of the system. And that is a function of an open culture. And big companies cannot do that unless they spin off some entities and allow them to make their own processes, put up their own rules of organization. Well, the top three takeaways for me are that women are more in colleges than men. So I feel the decade of 2020-2030 will be the decade of the Indian women, because women will be more in colleges, they'll come out more as graduates, and they will do much, much better. So gender equality will go a long way in making a better society. And I think this is a very, very important matter for a society, because all of us have wanted gender equality for a long period of time, and in the education field, it's happened in the form of numbers. The second most important takeaway for me was that among all communities in this country, whether you belong to the scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, or you belong to the OBC, or you belong to the minorities, or the rest, is the Muslim community, which has not done very well in education. Even though they're 15% of the population of this country, they are only about 5.2% of the total students in colleges. The gross enrollment rate is something like 9.7, whereas for the whole population is 26.5 odd percent. Even though their enrollment has grown at 7.7% for men, 7.8% for women in the last 7 years, their total enrollment in terms of numbers is still very small, and they're lagging way behind. This is a damning testament to the kind of politics that exists in this country, and I do feel that we cannot have any community, any group being left behind. So from now onward, for the next 10 years, we need a massive scholarship program so that more and more Muslim young people can go to college. They don't have to go outside the door because they can't afford the college, and get a decent education wherever they are. And I think special focus has to be put from government, and that this in terms of social structure was very important. You'll be surprised that OBCs constitute 40% of the population, and they make up 38% of students. I think SC is something like about maybe 18.6%. They make up 16%, 16 odd percent. And tribals as maybe 8.5%. They make up 5.6%. So I think all communities have done very well in the last many years, and they'll do well in future because the enrollment numbers in these communities has gone up. In the general community, which is only I think about 13%, the total number of students has actually gone down. I don't know whether they're being crowded out because others are coming up, and I don't know whether they lack the ability to pay fees, but that's a separate issue. The third point which I would like to talk about is about the states. If you look at all the states in higher education, all states barring one state have made tremendous progress. Bihar has not made much progress. GR 7 years ago was something like 11 and a half. Now it's come to 13. India 7 years ago was maybe 21, it's gone to 26. So Bihar is lagging behind. And Bihar is a very large state in terms of urbanization, in terms of fertility, which is very high, in terms of total students in colleges, in terms of per capita income, in terms of many other indicators of human development. Bihar is just not coming up, and is a matter of great worry. Even in children enrollment in schools is lagging behind. So I think special emphasis should be put on Bihar to invest hugely to make sure that Bihar students do not lack the education opportunities that others have across the country. Because in the entire country, all the states are doing well, Bihar is lagging behind. I think these are the three big takeaways. But another takeaway is that institutes of national importance are increasing. More students are going to better colleges. The flight to quality. More and more people are doing the master's degrees. 15 lakh young people are doing the master's degree, but only about I think 1,67,000 are doing the PhDs. India graduates I think 45,000 PhDs. Maybe we graduate more PhDs outside the country than in India. So we have to invest in more PhDs. We have to invest in PhDs in technology. Computer science PhDs are only about 450 odd. It's a very, very low number. I found it very strange that how can this number be so small. But I think in terms of quality, India has to make the great leap forward. Well, let me say this. I think that $5 trillion economy is feasible because 2019 March we had $2.732 trillion. And that was at a rupee of something like 72, 71. And if the rupee goes down to 75 to the dollar by 2025, we need to grow at around 7.5-8%, and with 4% inflation, I think we'll be there. So it's a simple mathematical formula, and I think we can do it. Yes, this current year is a bad year. We're growing only at about 5.5%. Inflation at 3.5%. We may grow at maybe 8.5-9% in nominal terms. So it is a bad year, but we should make it up in the next 3-4 years so that we can catch up, and I'm sure we can catch up. Now, what should governments do to make this happen? Well, government should ease regulations. Government should help increase the velocity of business. Compliance requirements have gone up tremendously in the last many years. There are many more conditionalities to business. Ease of business is improved in India, but it's not improved on the ground because the state governments are just not helping you. And I think there's a need to improve the ease of doing business from the regulators, from the Reserve Bank of India, from the government, from other regulators, etc., to make sure that we don't spend too much time in compliance, we reduce it. And most of the commercial laws which have become criminal laws. I mean, there are more than 55-60 sections in the Companies Act which foster criminal liability for such silly things as not having AGM or not filing documents, etc. All that should go. And we must have a system and mechanism where competition is fostered, and where we don't have too many compliance burden. Compliance is required, but you must see what is essential, what is not essential. The second thing which is very, very important is we need more liquidity in the financial system. The economy started going down this year from October of last year, the ILFS crisis, because at that point of time 40% of consumer spending was financed by NBFCs, and NBFCs used to get the money from commercial paper subscribed by the mutual funds, by bonds subscribed by the mutual funds, and by bank loans. And all three sources dried up immediately because there's fear that many of the NBFCs may not be able to pay back. and that led to a decline in consumer financing, and that led to a decline in the purchase of cars, the purchase of real estate, houses, etc., and that led to decline in economic growth, and that's why economic growth came down. It's lack of liquidity in the system. Now, India's savings rate is about 30%, and India's investment rate is 32%. We must increase the investment to something like 35-40%, and for that you must get financing. Now, there is just not enough financial savings happening in the economy. We just have about 11% of GDP as financial savings, and if the government borrows 6%, 6.5% out of that, then there's very little left for the private sector, so interest rates remain very high. So we must open up to the external world. And I think over the next 5 years, government should borrow at least $500 billion in long-term 30, 40-year loans and get the money into the economy and pump the money into the economy. Right now, today, our overall foreign debt is $550 billion. Even if you borrow $500 billion at maybe 3%, 4%, then you'll go to $1 trillion. But in 5 years' time, will be about $5 trillion. That'll be 20% of GDP, which is a very small number. And government debt today, I think, is about 80 billion, mostly multilateral, bilateral, and borrowing 500 billion and paying back after 30 years is not going to harm us, it's going to benefit us. That extra money coming into the economy will create more liquidity, will make money available for investment by many companies and many startups, etc. Today, if you ask everybody suffers from lack of working capital. Everybody suffers from high interest rates. Everybody suffers from lack of adequate liquidity. And many people cannot grow because they lack the liquidity. You ask, what is the most important problem that you have for any industry? They say, we don't have money. We don't have liquidity. Banks are not lending. NBFCs are almost shut. And we have a problem of liquidity in the marketplace. So I think it's very important that we solve this issue in a very big way. And for that, government has to be proactive, because government is taking away a large part of the savings. If government borrows overseas, and this saving is available for Indian industry, then it will go up. This will also improve liquidity, improve the velocity of business, improve much more purchases, and I think improve the economy, because consumption can go up, investment can go up, and the cost of investment will come down. Now, if you borrow at 11-12% for setting up a steel plant, okay, and you have a depreciation of 5%, that means you have to earn 16% of your capital back every year. Now, if you borrow at 6 to 7% and you have depreciation of 5%, you have to recover only 11%. That means the cost of that extra borrowing is what is being passed on as the cost of the product. Because for capital-intensive industries, the largest cost they have is the cost of finance and the cost of capital. And if that is passed on, then purchases become very high. That's why much of our industry is uncompetitive, because the cost of capital is very high. The cost of capital is also a function of the tax rate. Tax rate is now come down 25%, so that's good news. But I think interest rates have to come down, especially long-term interest rates. And by having the system flush with liquidity, people should be able to borrow 15-20-year loans in India for capex. Because if you borrow 15-20-year loans, you can recover your capex over 20 years, and that will help. So government has to do these three things. And the third, most important thing for government is government has to improve the rule of law. You cannot have a situation where court proceedings take 15, 20, 25 years. So if you have a commercial disputes, you're stuck. It goes on for years. If you have a tax dispute, it is stuck. It goes on 15, 20 years. So government has to improve capacity in justice system, make sure the quality of justice is much better, and stop litigating, because government is the largest litigant. So rule of law and improvement in justice has to happen. These are the three big issues. Now, as far as industry is concerned, I think industry has to learn how to become capital efficient. So the cost of capital is coming down in this country because of tax rates. Hopefully interest rates will come down. But industry has to learn how to become more efficient, more capital efficient, and more productive. Industry has to improve labor productivity. More output per person month is something that they look at. Because for industry to be competitive around the world, there are only two things. One is labor productivity, other is capital productivity. Labor productivity can come by better automation, better training of people, better processes, so you can produce more. When you produce more for same hour of human capital, then your costs come down. And then you must use your capex very carefully and sweat your assets. Instead of buying assets and using it for 8 hours, you must see how to use it for 24 hours a day. So you sweat your assets more and become capital efficient. So if you're capital efficient, you will earn more and you will become much better. And the third thing they have to do is to bring in new technology. So the latest technology is always more efficient. Latest technology improves processes, improves the quality of the output, and that has to be done. And then the last thing is, every business should look at globalizing. If you treat the whole world as a market, the market has a GDP of $80 trillion. If we treat India as a market, our GDP is only $2.7 trillion. So we choose the whole world as a market where you've got $80 trillion of GDP to tackle our $2.7 trillion. Yes, you can say that we don't have capacity to export, we don't have an ability to build a global supply chain, etc. But you can join global supply chains. You can use e-commerce to sell outside India. So you must always proactively create goods and services which are fit for the global market, including the Indian market. If you provide only what is for the Indian market, then you may lose out. So you must look at the globe as a market. I think these are the things that you must do. Then what about individuals? And what about society? Now individuals should look to try to become more productive. Because if you are earning a salary, you must produce and give to your firm at least 1.5 times the salary that you get. Then you are in a strong competitive position. Because the salaries keep going up, people's contribution come down, then if things go bad, you're going to go out the door. Because the other people waiting in the queue who could deliver more value for the salary that they get. So if people want more and more salary, they must deliver better output, they must deliver better quality. So they must improve their skills, improve their capability, constantly invest in themselves. Warren Buffett was once asked, what is the best investment an individual can make in his life? And he said the best investment you can make in your life is to invest on yourself. Improve your skills, improve education, and become much more productive. I think that's very important. And as far as society is concerned, all of us must try to put community before self. Society before self. That means the common good is important. Common good means, day-to-day life, we follow traffic rules, we follow norms like standing in a queue, and we follow norms like not throwing waste on the roads, and we respect community. We spend 10-20% of our time every week for community efforts, because if you invest in community, you get the benefits. If you don't invest in community, you get a rotten society like the kind we have in our cities. So unless we also spend our time improving community, we'll not make a good community. I think all these things are important to make sure that we create a great society and we create a $5 trillion economy in which all Indians will have the opportunities to realize the dream. Well, I think the three most crucial values the students must imbibe to become leaders of tomorrow is to lead by example. If you want to be a leader, you must lead by example. You must live the values you talk about. You must live the ideals that you talk about. So your thoughts should be very clear. And you should be the first to do things before expecting others to do it. You cannot sit back and command others to do it. The Indian Army is an outstanding example of this because young officers in the Indian Army lead from the front. That's why the casualties of officers in the Indian Army is one of the highest in the world. So they lead from the front, and you must lead from the front, and you lead from the front, you'll follow. Second, you must have qualities of heart and head that inspire people. That means you must be compassionate, you must be articulate, you must be strict, and you must be inspiring. And you must show self-confidence. And your persona and gravitas should evoke respect in others. Because if you are articulate, you have self-confidence, you're willing to listen to others, and willing to use data and decision making, then others will follow you. And the third thing you must do is walk the talk. Because if you want people to follow you and people to respect you, then you must walk the talk and make sure that whatever you talk is what you want to do. There cannot be double standards. There cannot be one standard for you, one standard for others, and you can't make false statements. I think these are the three most important things. Leading by example, having good qualities of heart and head, and making sure that you walk the talk. I think the starting point for all this is that we must understand and we must believe that we are what society is ultimately. If society is good, we get the benefits of a good society. Society is bad, it will pull us down. So it's our responsibility to make society much better. Now, when you are in a society in emerging market, there are many challenges. Challenges of want, challenges of need, challenges of unequal distribution or access to infrastructure and facilities, and inequality to a high degree. So you must contribute to reducing all this inequality or lack of access to the bare necessities of life in many parts of your country and your society. So if you spend 10-15% of what you earn and 10-15% of your time on improving society, then over your lifetime or maybe over a shorter period, you'll make a better society. But that's the reason we started Akshaya Patra. We started feeding 1,500 children in 2020, and today we feed about 1.8 million children across 16,000 schools in 13 states. We have supplied 300 crore meals, 3 billion meals, and I think it's worked very well to keep children in school, improve their physical and mental faculties, and generally turn them out to be better citizens. And I think it has had the impact on the girl child the most, because the girl child stays in school the longest compared to the boys in many rural areas. So I think compassion for your fellow beings, understanding your role in society, and understanding that the real value of your accomplishment is a good that you have done for everybody. The real value of accomplishment is not the money you earn in the bank. Money is important. You must earn well. It is not your status that you have in society is important. You must aspire for a good status, but the impact you had on society. Now, most of us are busy in our careers. We build our careers. We work very hard, etc. So if you're working very hard, you don't have time, then you can give your money. Find the organization and give your money and work with an organization to scale up. So we worked with Akshaya Patra since 2000 to bring that corporate way of scaling up processes, quality, strategy, distribution, supply chain, infrastructure, etc. to make it very professional, and that has helped us scale up and improve quality and keep things together. And that's why it's had such a tremendous impact. It's the largest midday meal program in the world. And I think working in the program gives a new meaning to your life, because when you see so much good being done, you get repurposed. You have a higher purpose in life, and the purpose gets executed very so often. So you see progress. You know the problem is very large, but you see progress from time to time, and that keeps you going. It gives you a new energy to do your work and a new meaning to your life. So personally it helps you, it helps society, and I think it's important for every individual to find a cause where they devote a fair part of their lives and their money and their earning to make an impact on society. I don't know, because everything has a cause and effect. You are here today and you're successful, you've done well, because of many things that happened. There were causes, there were effects, and everything worked out, and some didn't work out, etc. So I have no regrets in my life, and I have nothing that can tell me you could have done something. But given an ability, I would have spent more time on my family. So when my children were growing up, I didn't spend enough time at home. I was consumed with doing better and better in my company. I spent all my time outside. I didn't want them grow up. My wife brought up the children. They come out very well. And I didn't spend time. So I feel a tinge of regret that I didn't spend time with my parents. My father was in hospital for nearly 3 months, most of the time in coma, because he was very ill. I didn't spend time with him. I don't go visit him every day. My mother was there every day. I didn't pay for his medical expense. My mother paid for it, even though I offered to pay. She sold all her jewelry and paid for it. So I feel a tinge of guilt. Not that, it doesn't matter, because the money is all family money, but I didn't spend time. And I didn't spend time with my siblings. So what I would have done better, hopefully, is maybe spend more time with family, more time with my parents, and that's the only thing I would have done differently. I think the youth of India will contribute to making the world better if they make India better, because India is 17% of the world. Even for the sustainability goals that you have, sustainability development goals that you have for 2030, if India does well, the world will realize the goals, because India is a very large part of those goals. So I would tell every young person, dream big, dream, work very hard to achieve the dream, give back to society. And every day in the morning, wake up with fresh energy. Never get dispirited. Never get, let us say, pessimistic. Always be optimistic. And always remember, whatever happens to you, the sun is going to rise in the morning and set in the evening. So do your best for society and work smart and dream big. And if you achieve your dream, society will be better.